James flies across the continent to surprise his son for a birthday dinner, expecting a warm family reunion. Instead, he walks into a nightmare in the freezing long-term parking lot of Denver International Airport. His son and twin grandsons, homeless and shivering inside a frosted sedan. What begins as a desperate rescue mission quickly uncovers a sinister, sophisticated plot of embezzlement, gaslighting, and legal warfare orchestrated by a wealthy family to destroy a good man. Armed with righteous fury and a high-powered attorney, James declares war on the people who tried to erase his son, proving that a father's love is the one force money can't bribe. I like to realize that our community covers all corners of the world. One quick question: from which corner of the planet are you watching me? Write your country below, and let's see how far we've come together. Biting wind whipped across the gray expanse of the long-term parking lot at Denver International Airport, stinging my face with the promise of snow. I had flown in from Seattle with a wrapped gift tucked under my arm, buzzing with the anticipation of surprising my son Dan for his 32nd birthday. It was supposed to be a weekend of steak dinners and spoiling my grandsons. But as I navigated the endless rows of dormant vehicles, a flash of color in the sea of gray caught my eye and stopped me cold. A navy red Toyota Camry sat isolated under the flickering hum of a halogen light. The windows were opaque, curtained by a thick, milky layer of condensation, the kind that only forms when living, breathing bodies are trapping heat inside a small space against the freezing March air. I stopped. I knew that car. I had helped pay for the down payment 3 years ago. Stepping closer, I wiped a circle onto the foggy rear passenger window. My breath hitched, then stalled completely in my throat. Curled together in the back seat, buried under a tangled mess of coats and a single threadbare wool blanket, were Nathan and Oliver. My 5-year-old grandsons were asleep in a parking garage. My gaze shifted to the front. Slumped over the center console, looking thinner than I had ever seen him, his face gray and drawn, was Dan. I didn't knock. I pounded on the glass with the flat of my hand. Dan jerked awake, eyes wide with the primal panic of a hunted animal. He scrambled to sit up, blinking through the fog, disoriented. When his eyes finally focused on me, the color drained from his face. It wasn't relief I saw there. It was a crushing, devastating shame that made me want to tear the world apart with my bare hands. The door creaked open. The air that escaped was heavy, the stale, unmistakable scent of unwashed clothes, old fast food, and desperation. "Dad?" His voice was a ruin, cracked and dry as sandpaper. What are you doing here? What am I doing here?" The question came out as a whisper, my voice failing me. "Dan, where is the house? Where is Jennifer? Why are you sleeping in a car with my grandsons in freezing temperatures?" He wouldn't look at me. He stared at his hands, which were shaking violently against the steering wheel. It's complicated." "Complicated?" I gestured to the boys, who were stirring now, rubbing sleep from their eyes. "This isn't complicated, Dan. This is a catastrophe. You are sleeping in a parking lot in March." "Grandpa?" Nathan's voice was small, muffled by the blanket. He looked up, confused, his nose running. Shoving the panic down, I forced a bright, tight smile onto my face. "Hey there, buddy. Surprise? Why don't we get you and Oliver out of this cold? Grandpa is starving for pancakes. Who's hungry?" 40 minutes later, we were in a vinyl booth at a nearby 24-hour diner. The boys were devouring stacks of pancakes with a voracity that broke my heart, oblivious to the tension radiating across the table. Dan nursed a black coffee, his shoulders hunched as if expecting a blow. "Start from the beginning," I said, keeping my voice low but firm. "And don't protect her." He let out a long, ragged exhale. "Jennifer filed for divorce 3 months ago." "But it wasn't just a split, Dad. It was a demolition. She took everything. The house, the savings, the business operating capital, everything. The house was in both your names," I argued, trying to make sense of the legal impossibility. "Not anymore." He rubbed his temples. About 6 months ago, she convinced me to sign a quitclaim deed. She said her father's tax attorney advised it to protect our assets from business liability. I trusted her. I signed. The day she filed, she changed the locks. I came home to find my key didn't work and a process server waiting on the porch with a restraining order. A restraining order? On what grounds? Mental instability, he said, the words dripping with bitterness. She claimed I was volatile, dangerous. She had her parents swear affidavits that I'd been acting erratic, threatening her. Her lawyer presented evidence, text messages I supposedly sent, emails I never wrote. The judge granted an emergency protective order. I was kicked out with the clothes on my back. And the money? The $200,000 I wired for the startup? Dan flinched. Gone. She managed the books. She transferred every cent to an account controlled by her father, Douglas. She claimed it was repayment for a business loan we supposedly took from him. A loan that never existed. But since she had all the banking passwords and paperwork inside the house, I couldn't enter. I couldn't prove anything. He looked at the boys, his eyes filling with tears. The custody hearing was 2 weeks ago. I lost. I get supervised visitation twice a week at her parents' mansion in Cherry Creek. The court said until I can prove stable housing and employment, I'm a risk. But I can't get an apartment without first, last, and security deposit. And she made sure I have zero access to funds. I've been picking up gig work, but it's barely enough for food and gas. I shower at the gym. I tell the boys we're on a secret mission. Rage is a cold thing. It settles in your gut like lead. Where are these visits? At her folks' place. Her mother sits in the corner with a notepad, scribbling down everything I say. If I whisper to the boys, she marks it down as suspicious behavior. It's psychological warfare, Dad. They are trying to erase me. Pack it up, I said, throwing cash on the table. You're coming to the Hyatt. We're getting you a suite, a hot shower, real beds, and then we are going to burn their little kingdom to the ground. Dad, you can't fix this. Her father is Douglas Whitmore. He's a developer. They have money, connections, and lawyers who charge more an hour than I make in a week. They have money, I corrected him, standing up. We have the truth, and now you have me. Night settled over the hotel. And the boys were finally asleep, clean and full. Dan passed out the second his head hit the pillow, the exhaustion of months finally taking over. I sat at the small desk, laptop open, phone in hand. I dialed my corporate attorney in Seattle, Paul Chen. Paul, wake up. I need a referral for Denver. I need a shark. Someone who handles high-conflict divorce and financial fraud. I explained the situation. The silence on the other end was heavy. That's not a divorce, James, Paul said finally. That's a heist. You need Rebecca Hart. She's expensive, aggressive, and hates bullies. By 9:00 a.m. the next morning, we were sitting in Rebecca Hart's glass-walled office overlooking the Rockies. She was terrifyingly efficient, listening to Dan's story without interrupting, her eyes scanning us like she was reading code. Here is the reality, Rebecca said, leaning forward, her voice steel. This is coercive control. They have stripped your resources to make you unable to fight, then used your poverty as proof of your unfitness. It's a playbook I see too often. The instability narrative is their shield. How do we break it? I asked. We dismantle their reality, she said. We need hard data. Bank records, medical records, digital forensics. I'm bringing in a forensic accountant to trace that money. And Dan, did you see a doctor or therapist during this volatile period? I saw Dr. Patel, Dan said quietly. For work anxiety, just stress management. Rebecca smiled, a sharp, predatory expression. Perfect. An unstable man doesn't seek stress management. He explodes. Those records are our golden ticket. I spent the next 3 weeks burning through my retirement savings, and I didn't care. I rented a townhouse in Aurora, furnished it, and we got the boys enrolled in the local elementary school. Dan, bolstered by having a roof over his head, reached out to old contacts and landed a project management role at a tech firm within days. Meanwhile, I played detective. I visited Dan's old office. His former business partner, Tom, was eager to talk. Dan? Unstable? Tom laughed, though there was no humor in it. He was the rock of this company. Jennifer was the one who would show up here screaming because he didn't answer a text within 5 minutes. I'll testify to that, anytime, anywhere. Rebecca's forensic accountant, a quiet genius named Martin Wu, went to work on the financial trail. It took him a month to peel back the layers. The $200,000 wasn't a loan repayment, Martin told us, pointing to a complex flowchart spread across the conference table. It was theft. There is no loan agreement, no promissory note, just a wire transfer initiated by Jennifer 2 days before she filed the restraining order, and she didn't stop there. She siphoned another $140,000 in consulting fees to a shell company registered to her father. That's almost $300,000, I said. It's grand larceny, Martin corrected, and tax evasion, because Douglas Whitmore never declared that income. Armed with this, Rebecca filed an emergency motion to modify custody and suspend the financial orders. We submitted the lease for the townhouse, Dan's new employment contract, Tom's affidavit, and Dr. Patel's therapy notes, which described Dan as lucid, calm, and proactively managing situational stress. Jennifer's lawyer, a slick operator named Trevor Harding, filed a counter-motion claiming Dan's new stability was a sham funded by Daddy's money. The real turning point came from the supervised visits. Dan, on Rebecca's advice, had legally recorded the audio of his time with the boys. We compared the audio against the written reports submitted by Jennifer's mother. Grandmother's report. Father appeared agitated and aggressive. Children were fearful and clung to supervisor. Audio recording. Sounds of Lego blocks clicking, Nathan laughing. Dad, look, I built a tower. That's amazing, Nate. You're a regular architect. I love you, Dad. I love you too, buddy. The lies were documented. Irrefutable. July arrived. The court date that would decide the future of my family. Justice Margaret Holloway presided, a judge known for her low tolerance for theatrics. The courtroom air was stifling, heavy with the scent of wood polish and anxiety. Jennifer sat with her parents, looking the picture of the grieving, scared victim. But as Rebecca began to lay out our case, that picture began to crack. Rebecca didn't shout. She surgically removed their defenses. She presented the forensic accounting, showing the theft. She presented the therapy records, showing the sanity. Then she called Jennifer to the stand. Mrs. Reeves, Rebecca asked, holding up a printout, you testified that Dan sent you threatening texts. You deleted them? I was scared, Jennifer whispered, dabbing at dry eyes. But you provided screenshots to your lawyer. Screenshots that our digital forensics expert has determined were created on a desktop computer using Photoshop. The metadata, the digital fingerprint, shows they were created on January 14th at 2 p.m., 3 weeks after you claim they were sent. Jennifer froze. Her confidence evaporated. I don't know about technical things. Let's talk about the money, Rebecca pressed. You transferred $200,000 to your father. Where is the loan agreement? It was verbal. A verbal agreement for 6 figures? Without your husband's knowledge? He knew. Phone records show 0 communication between you two on that day. He was at a client site in Boulder. How did he know? I don't remember, Jennifer snapped, her mask slipping. Rebecca turned to the judge. Your Honor, this is not a custody dispute. This is a conspiracy. They have fabricated evidence, embezzled marital assets, and weaponized this court to alienate a loving father from his children. Justice Holloway lowered her glasses. She looked at the Whitmore family, then at Dan. Mrs. Whitmore, the judge said, addressing Jennifer's mother in the gallery, I have read your visitation reports, and I have listened to the audio. Perjury is a crime in my courtroom. Do not think you are immune. She turned back to the bench. I have seen enough. Mr. Reeves, you have demonstrated that you are a capable, stable, and loving father. The court finds the allegations against you to be without merit and, quite frankly, malicious. The gavel came down with a sound like a gunshot. I am ordering immediate 50-50 custody. The supervised visitation is terminated, effective this second. Furthermore, I am ordering Jennifer Reeves to return $280,000 to the marital estate within 60 days. Failure to do so will result in a contempt charge and seizure of assets. And given the evidence of fraud, I am forwarding this file to the district attorney's office. Dan collapsed into his chair. He didn't cheer. He just put his head in his hands and wept, the tension of 6 months leaving his body in violent shudders. Outside the courtroom, the doors opened, and Nathan and Oliver, who had been waiting with the social worker, saw their dad. They didn't ask permission. They ran. Dan dropped to his knees on the marble floor, catching them both, burying his face in their necks. "We're going home, guys," he sobbed. "We're really going home." Fall came to Colorado, bringing crisp air and turning the aspens to gold. The legal fallout continued. Douglas Whitmore was indicted for tax fraud. Jennifer pleaded out to lesser charges to avoid jail, accepting a massive financial restitution plan. I never went back to Seattle. I found a condo in Aurora, 10 minutes from Dan's place. I realized I had missed too much already. One evening, Dan and I stood on my balcony watching the boys play tag in the courtyard below. He handed me a beer. "I haven't said it," he started, staring out at the horizon. "Not really. You don't have to." "I do." "Dad, that night in the parking lot, I was done. I was thinking about how to give them up to foster care because I couldn't keep them warm. You didn't just buy us dinner, you saved my life." I took a sip of beer, fighting the lump in my throat. "They made you question your own reality, Dan. That's what manipulators do. But I know the man I raised. I knew they were lying the moment I looked in your eyes." "I hope I can be that kind of father," he said, watching Nathan tag Oliver. "You already are," I told him. "You fought the whole world for them. You stayed in that car to keep them close. That's the job." Below us, Oliver looked up and waved. "Grandpa, Daddy, watch this!" I waved back. "Watching, buddy, always watching." And I meant it. We had rebuilt the fortress stone by stone. The wolves had been chased away from the door. And as long as I had breath in my lungs, they would never, ever get back in. What did you think of this story? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more amazing content coming your way.